Hi guys, so welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that many people may seem apprehensive about, but it's one that we should talk about, and it's around why marriages are under attack. It's very serious because there's many marriages that are going under attack, but they don't know why. People just think, oh, it's just the norm. But nonetheless, let's get into it. Of course, I'll be reading from my book as well because I've written down some notes to help me along the way. Do you guys know that statistics shows that there are more than 50% of divorces that is occurring now? It is bad. It seems as if people is only getting married to just divorce. It's absolutely sad because people don't understand the essence of why one gets married and what marriage should be in the first place, right? Marriage is made for show rather than made for love, because again, the essence of marriage is supposed to embrace and embody love, correct? To the point where people do not trust each other anymore, so they go to an extreme, or they go to the extreme of signing prenups. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with signing a prenup or whatever agreement you guys come into, but I feel like the mere fact that you guys went into that marriage knowing that you're in it to get something, then I'm not saying that obviously marriage is not supposed to be prosperous, because that's the essence, both of you coming to one and building together. But when you go into it with a mindset of getting what the other person have, that's when divorce comes on the top notch of what the essence of marriage should be in the first place. Because if love was at the center of that, then you wouldn't even be thinking about prenup. You know what I mean? Of course, this results in families being broken, children being separated from both parents, and the family home just get discombobulated. Confusion starts to come in. But we tend to not actually accept the fact that the real reason behind this is not so much physical, but much more spiritual. And again, people deviate from this when this is actually the real thing. There are literal beings working against marriages right now. And that is why marriages are not the way how it's supposed to be in the first place, because marriage is supposed to be a covenant with God. When both of you come together, you leave your mother and your father and you become one with your wife and you build a family. That's it. That's the essence of marriage. That's the essence of what marriage should be. And that's what the embodiment of marriage is meant to be. The forces that are working behind the scenes that we cannot see is literally working against us and also working against marriages. They're against the oneness in marriages. Because once marriage comes into play, you and your partner now becomes one. It's no longer a me and him or a she and him. It's now one. You become one with that individual. And that is the one and true covenant, to be honest. And that is what pleases our Lord. Right? Marriages, he made that so that we can become one. But the enemy, who is the true culprit behind these segregation and these marriages being under attack or coming under attack, we can't see the true culprit behind it. And he's against marriages. The enemy is against marriages because of the oneness of it, because of love. Therefore, he wants us all who desire to get married to do it according to his will and according to his standards. So now we have a real culprit behind the segregation and the breaking up of marriages that is working behind the scenes to come against the oneness in marriages. But because we can't see it, we tend to blame each other. And that's what's going on right now in marriages. For example, before you got married, right? You and your partner were like best friends. Like, think about it. Before you got married, you and your best friends, you were like best friends and inseparable. Correct? Then as soon as you get married, then all of a sudden it's like all hell broke loose. argument starts, the bickering, the noise, all this starts to occur in the marriage that was not there before when you guys were just partners, courting and going out and dating, right? Now you start to blame each other again, and then you just start to make excuses. Oh, I think we're just growing apart from each other. I think we weren't meant to be with each other in the first place. Blaming everything else aside from the true culprit who is behind the scenes that is causing that wedge in that marriage between you guys. So now, instead of fighting for your marriage, you decide that, okay, it's time for you to take a walk and take a divorce, right? And I'm not talking about fighting in the physical sense, but fighting in the spiritual, like praying and fasting, praying to God, asking God to intervene, asking God to open your eyes to see the true culprit who is causing that wedge in that marriage. That's what I meant when I say fight for your marriage. Because marriage is a covenant with God, to God, and is God. You understand? So this is why you need to go back to the source to ask him to help you to understand what's causing, all of a sudden you and your best friend becomes enemy. Also, I am not talking about both of you in the courting aspects of your relationship, seeing red flags. I'm not talking about that. Of course, that's a different case scenario, because if you go into a relationship with someone and you start from the jump seeing red flags, my advice to you is to take it for what it is and not paint the red flags green. Because many of us tend to do that many a times, especially if we're getting something that we really need from that relationship, be it finance, be it the person looks, be it sex. Let's face it, if you see red flags in the first instance and then you decide to continue in that relationship and then add marriage to that equation, marriage will not change it. Because if that person is like that, 9 times out of 10, the marriage will only amplify it. Because many times, again, we make excuses and say, oh no, once we get married, things will change. No, it only amplifies the situation. Now it's more harder for you to get out of that scenario because you're now trapped because of paperwork, the legal aspect of it, the family aspects, everything comes into play. So it's not as easy if you're just in the courting phase and then you start seeing the red flags and you said, okay, bye, it's time for me to walk. Right? So this is where we need to get at as it relates to understanding before we get into marriage. And then now it becomes a broken thing. Yeah. And also we are blindsided because of course we're human beings. We like what we see sometimes and all of these things. However, we cannot be blindsided by the physical look. Because again, you can have somebody with physical appearance that, top notch. However, the character, their heart condition is very messed up. And then instead of you, looking for the character, because it's the character that is much more important. So instead of you looking for the character, you tend to look for the physical. Therefore, I implore you guys, the important thing to do is go to God and ask God if the person that you're currently dating, if that person is the one he has for you. Trust me, he will reveal it to you. You only have to ask. He said, ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be open. Yes, he said it and it is so. Let's face it, God knows us even more than we know ourselves. So usually before God allows us to go into a marriage or go into a relationship, he will first work on us individually. You understand? So he'll work on our heart, he'll work on our mind, our soul, he'll work on us, he'll purge us, prune us, mold us into that godly woman and that godly wife and that godly husband and that godly man we ought to be, so that when he bring us together, we are both on the same page, we're both aligned with the will of God. So this is important. This is why it is imperative that we do the will of God. That's why it's important that we go to God and ask him what is his will as it relates to our spouse. Usually we make decisions based on the moment, maybe on how we're feeling at the time or how the person makes us feel at the time, especially if sex is involved. Let me pinch you and get you on a little secret, my people. If you really want to see if that person you're currently dating is the person for you, keep sex out of that relationship, or in that courting and dating phase of the relationship, rather. Keep sex out of it. You will see that true color of that person. Let's face facts. If a man is only physically attracted to you, that's all that you will get from that person. That's all you will get from that man. That's all you will get that from that woman. The physical attraction. There was nothing else. There's no marriage in play. There's nothing else in play. There's no growth in that. It's just the physical aspects of that relationship. And when you keep sex out of it, that person will walk away. And be glad when they walk away, because guess what? You've been saved from getting a heartbreak or going into something that can potentially stem into abuse. So be glad and thankful to God. Keep sex out of it, my people. I'm telling you, and you will see. You will see. Trust me. Now, if you are married currently and you are going through a little rough patch in your marriage, let me aid you both with some practical steps in which you can take. And just to put this out there, I am no marriage therapist, neither am I a marriage counselor. It was taken from the biblical stance of how a wife should operate and how a husband should operate. Because if you should look at your grandparents, your great, great, great grandparents, actually, and who has been married, or even others who their grandparents and their great grandparents are still married, up till when they passed away, right? They were in that marriage for like some 50, some 60 years onwards. That is a strong, strong bond. They both, enjoy each other's company. And, sometimes people might think, oh no, it's of course, marriages, there's no perfection. But again, when you guys can work together, it can reach to that point. You understand? So I guess we can take notes from their books, because they must be doing something very, very excellently well, to be in their marriage going strong, still best friends with each other. When you see them walking down the road, they're holding hands, they're not no roommates, nothing like that. They're lovers. Yes. I want to go on to my ladies. Ladies, we must work on ourselves. And of course, I'll be talking to the men as well. But I want to talk about the virtuous woman. I'm pretty sure majority of you women have heard about the virtuous woman. And I'm going to read from here and tell you what a virtuous woman is. So, a virtuous woman and a capable wife. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She takes care of her husband, prepares breakfast, and plans the activities for the day. She speaks of investments and assess the investments with her earnings. She adds to her household and she builds. She is hardworking, energetic, strong, and she ensures her dealings are profitable. She helps the poor, opens her arms to the needy. She does not worry about what her family will eat, because it is provided and she prepares it. Yes. She presents herself in a respectable manner and speaks graciously. Her husband is respected by all in the area. He's known, and that husband is able to boast about his wife to his friends and families because of the way she carries herself and the virtuous character she possesses. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she is happy and has no fear of the future because of the foundation she lays with her family. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness, soft and gentle. She's careful and diligent, watches everything in her household, and she is never lazy. No. Her children stand and blesses her, and her husband praises her. Now, because of the way she carries herself, the husband has no other choice but to ensure that he puts a smile on this woman's face all the time. He provides and he leaves an inheritance for his children and his family. He will go above and beyond to ensure a smile is always on her face. Yes, they both will and can work together to accomplish their goals. My ladies, be careful not to be a nagging wife. Yes, we don't want to reach to that point where we're nagging our husbands. Let's face facts. Sometimes we can be very nagging and provoking at times. And I'm not saying that men don't sometimes add salt to the wound, but soft answers turn away wrath. It will come to a point where us as the women, the ladies, when we exude that softness and, we're not quick to anger, it will soften their stance and they will realize, okay, you know what? I do not want to hurt my wife. And, that will soften them too. Usually, 9 times out of 10, that works. If that man truly loves you. I want to talk about something as well. Sometimes, and this is for both men and women, sometimes we tend to take our spouses for granted, especially us women. We tend to do it the most. It's where we've developed entitlement instead of appreciation. So you don't say please nor thank you anymore. And you refuse to acknowledge the efforts behind what they do. It's as if you expect that that's the way it should be and that's what they should do anyways. Oh, that's what they should do anyways. You know what I mean? Like those kind of attitude that we exude, and instead of appreciating our husband, we just think that, oh, he should do it anyways. No, but we need to deviate from that. We need to appreciate and show our husband that appreciation, so that of course it gives them encouragement to continue to do what they must do. And I know people might say they have this term, oh, it's a yamed mentality, but no, in order to have a marriage that goes on and stems on to 50 to 60 years strong and even more and beyond, these are the things that we need to do. Practical steps, my sisters. Because small things are not small things in marriages. Small things stems to bigger things, because it's the little small things that turns into big things. And it becomes like that, when you've got like a pot and there's a dripping of water, drips, 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 drips. At some point, that dripping will build up to that cup being full and it becomes overflowing. Once you stop making your spouse a priority, then that's where things starts to break down. Then there's little to no communication. It's as if you guys become now roommates or housemates instead of lovers, instead of husbands and wives. So then comes in emotional distance. Decreased satisfaction comes in because you no longer turn on each other. You guys discuss each other instead of turning on each other, right? Because the wedge is just there. And physical intimacy becomes limited to the point it becomes no more. Yes, of course, the risk of cheating is heightened at this point, because if you're not getting the emotional connection at home from your spouse, and you go out there and the little ounce of it that you may receive from somebody that you probably went out as a friend on a little, just at outings, something that was supposed to be just, neutral outings. Then because that person might be showing you just a little ounce of affection, that's when that person being in that vulnerable state might fall into that trap of cheating. As it relates to the wives, let's not be nagging wives, because it says in Proverbs 21 verse 9 that it is better for a man to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house with a nagging wife. You don't want to be that. You do not want to be that for your husband. You want your husband to be eager to come home to a safe space, to, where he knows that you are going to comfort him after a long days of work. You know what I mean? And you are his safe space. You are his headache breaker. You're not his headache. You are the breaker or the reducer of his headache that he has accumulated over a long days of work. So this is where we want to be at. And I will be doing another message on how women should be wives to their husband. And then I will do another message on how men should be husbands to their wives. So I'll do that in two separate videos just to give an extensive version from this. But as it relates to the wedge that is being cast in marriages, it's not with the physical eyes that you can see. What you need to understand that this world is first spiritual before it is physical, because things get manifested in the spiritual before it manifests or you see it in the physical. So let's continue to pray. When you start seeing your marriages deteriorating, start praying instantly to eradicate the plans of the enemy, Satan, who is behind the scenes working against the oneness and the unity in the marriages. All right. Thank you guys for watching.